Simon, it's been around 6 months since we last spoke, and an awful lot has happened to the business in that time. You seem to be enjoying something of approaching a fantastic dynamic. Just walk us through some of your recent listings.
Sure. One day is never the same in Penderyn, that's for sure. So it's pleasurable to be able to open up the computer in the morning and see new things arriving, some challenges, some not. But milestones over the last months would be our listing with JR Duty Free in Ben Gurion in Israel, one of the top 10 travel retail airport locations in the world. And the amount of business we've had with those guys has been very successful. We've just launched in 7 Canadian border shops in the Ontario area. Small, but again, it just proves that we have those legs to make us appear in locations which are important to us. Portugal duty free, again, a very favourite number of locations to me. Faro, Lisbon, Porto, and of course the Madeira, the islands where our Madeira casks come from. Very passionate about that, and as we move forward, then clearly Portugal and its wine casks can provide us with an opportunity to play games in store with that business. But clearly most monumental has been our launch in China. The first orders were just being prepared when we spoke last time. They're now arriving in China. Not just the main ranges, but also a number of exclusives, limited edition bottlings and single cask products, which are just for China duty free. They've been labelled as exclusive, so we're very excited about being able to bring those products alive in store in the coming months.
Now, as Stephen Davis said, the key to building a brand success is ensuring that repeat business is secured. I mean, how much has that contributed to Penderyn's overall growth?
Critical. I think what Stephen alluded to was long-term partnerships that we create with our partners, both in domestic market here, internationally in countries around the world, and in travel retail. It gives them belief that Penderyn is a brand that has sustainability in terms of brand essence, but also the fact that they are being able to see that repeat business, growth in distribution, growth in the range is a critical part of us being able to flag up success to new partners as well. I use our success with Dufry in the UK as a gauge to say we are now double what we were pre-pandemic in terms of the number of products that we're selling. The distribution has growth, and they wouldn't do that if they didn't feel that we were a brand worth putting on their shelves.
You're in 50 countries currently. Where do you see new locations as your priority for distribution?
I think it's about where do we see the consumer, and the consumer who's interested in the niche market or the growing new market that will be single malt whiskey. And that can range from obviously China, India, through to small but growing markets in Latin America. There is obviously a core where we're big at the moment, and we focus on those given the dynamics of today. But clearly, if we need to plant the seed in markets such as Mexico, Ecuador, Brazil, even Africa, some locations in Africa, those over time will be markets that we need to tap into. So as Penderyn is a pioneer of world whisky, then we need to be pioneering and get out there as first movers into those markets.
I also understand that you've just secured a brand new regional distribution agreement. What can you share with the viewers now?
Yeah, I think it's important that we utilise the skills and capabilities of organisations other than our own. We have a capability and a business that has a certain footprint. We're not in Asia particularly well today, so using a qualified local partner who is on site, has a supply chain on site and can springboard us into new customers and new markets in that region is an exciting thing to look forward to. And we'll be working with that team in Singapore when we get to the TFWA for sure in May together.
Let's move on to the product portfolio itself. And what can the global travel retail business expect from Penderyn for 2023? And what will you be presenting at TFWA Singapore in a few weeks' time?
Okay, so there's a couple of main changes that are happening to core. The Dragon range will have a new set of clothes, as I like to call it, a new bottle, a new carton, radically different from its existing product that's been in place since 2015. For our travel retail exclusive Penderyn Faraday, currently it sits in a 70 cl, maybe challenged about that allowance issue. We'll move that into a brand new 1 litre bottle with a new bespoke packaging presentation. We'll be able to share some of that in Singapore, but not all of it. But certainly the Dragon range will be launched into the market internationally in June, July, and that's a critical point for us this year. Also, I think what the travel retail customer can also expect is us being able to demonstrate our agility, flexibility, and desire to bring exclusivity to their own stores by maybe offering them a chance to have their own Penderyn, their own single cask, or their own small batch. We've had a lot of success with that. We're working on an exclusive product for Dufry for Q4 this year. Details to be confirmed, but that's an exciting piece. They came to the distillery and have been involved in selection of the cask. So there's more of that style of release that we can do.
And we'll wait to see what you bring to Cannes.
Yeah, indeed, that will be the critical unveiling of the new Penderyn Faraday.
Now, Stephen talked with some passion about world whiskies. What are your own views on this?
I think world whisky is a critical platform for us. Clearly, Welshness on its own is a lever that we use, but giving retailers a broader opportunity to bring newness, innovation, differentiation to what they've had before, and that's nothing to say that Scotch, Irish, American whiskies, it's the mainstream. But giving consumers who are increasingly wanting something different, something new, something with a story, world whisky absolutely plays into that category. Whisky is being made in more than 30 countries around the world now. Distillers are doing some funky things in distilling and maturation. As pioneers in that category, I would say that Penderyn absolutely has to be one of those number one targets they're putting on their shelf and helping them create that category of whisky du monde, shall we say.
Now, sustainability is dominating many boardroom conversations right now. It can't be easy for liquor brands to achieve overnight success in ticking all the key boxes, like recycling, repackaging, and so on. Of course, you know, we've read of Diageo's trial and plan to make the most sustainable glass Scotch whisky bottles ever. Still some way off perhaps, yes, but a major industry-leading initiative nonetheless. I mean, what are Penderyn doing in terms of sustainable actions?
We would do everything that every producer, manufacturer will be doing that's demanded of them by the biggest retailers. We tick the boxes of Tesco, so that pretty much says that we're on track to achieve their targets in terms of emissions, in terms of recycling, in terms of reusability. Our distilleries are all being built with solar panels, with electric charging points, with access for all parties. So we do whatever we can. We don't, unfortunately, have the resources to shout about it. We can't invest in chasing sustainability awards, but we are as green as we can be, and we're doing everything we can.
Now, the most recent budget in the UK has not really helped the whisky industry at all. What are your thoughts on this?
From a duty-free perspective, you could say it makes no difference to what we do. It does in a way, because the high street price that we see now being recorded and monitored against will go up. It's relatively straightforward for brand owners in the drinks industry to pass that through automatically to consumers. There's no debate. It doesn't allow us to add any further cost increases to that different shelf price. It's a challenge. We're all struggling. The industry's struggling, and it's probably the last thing you need to make premium products even more expensive, and there's a possibility that consumers, when they face the shelf, will trade down. And that's a function that Penderyn as a premium brand has to be mindful of. But in the same way, I think we sing out our quality, and where people want to drink better, then they will be able to carry on buying and accessing Penderyn as they would do normally.
But I thought your brands were pretty inclusive, that they weren't exclusively a premium priced.
I would say if you look at our shelf price in the UK, we would start at what's called a premium level. We don't have any standard price brands operate. Our Dragon range is expensive for the lower level supermarkets, but our Gold range is targeted at a price point which makes us attractive compared to the competition.
Accessible.
And accessible being critical, and wherever we go, we benchmark a variety of other brands, Scotch, other whisky brands, because we know that there is a balance that consumers will pay in terms of new brands, new to market products.
Okay, just moving on now, and perhaps moving into a slightly more broad question. I mean, what do you see as the key trends in the business?
I think there's very little change in terms of consumer dynamics over the last couple of years. Premiumisation is a critical thing in the industry, in all categories. People are drinking better. They're drinking less, but they're drinking better. So their choice is, if I'm going to buy a bottle of whiskey or a bottle of wine, then I can afford to buy something a little bit more interesting, and I'm going to drink it less. So on the flip side of that is there is a massive increase in no, low alcohol category. Global brands are producing their own variants of no and low, and that's good for the consumer, because if they can see global brands coming into that category, it means that the quality will be there. There are challenger brands coming in and taking that opportunity there as well. For us, it's something that it's not a Penderyn opportunity. Whiskey, I think, is a next. Yet, never say never, but in the short term, it's not part of our sort of product strategy. So no low, premiumisation, sustainability we've spoken about a lot as a critical thing in terms of consumer dynamic. Occasionality, so we've seen a boom in terms of RTDs, ready-to-drink variants. Maybe not so much in travel retail, but I see them coming more and more into the market. And again, is it an opportunity for Penderyn? Our scale limits us a little bit in terms of everything would have to be outsourced if we were canning or bottling and doing that style of offer. So we stick to what we know best. But those would be, for me, the main 4 themes I see happening in the industry today.
Well, of course, you've got a gin and a rum brand in your product mix. I mean, I could argue that the industry has reached a saturation point in gin, yet it still seems firmly focused on not giving developing sectors enough shelf space. I mean, vodka's a very good example. Tequila and rum too, they still got plenty of scope to grow. I mean, what do you think?
You will know from what I've said before about my sense of frustration, maybe, about the fact that the travel retail industry operates on very long lead times, somewhat necessarily because of the way the model works. The short-term concession model doesn't encourage flexibility or risk. So security in big brands, in established products that they know create revenue and turnover.
It's the norm. It
means that they are less, maybe not less aware of the trends, but less able to change flexibly. So when we talk about world whiskey, we talk about the huge growth in tequila and mezcal, which are small but very strong growers. Then I think the travel retail community does take time to respond, and that's a frustration.
Now, you really must be feeling especially proud of standing here right now in the new Swansea distillery that's going to be opening up in a couple of months. And of course, there's a customer experience centre here too to match what's in Llandudno and, of course, Penderyn, who we're visiting tomorrow. For the local community, this is also really a bit of a flagship for the brand and for Wales. What does this third distillery actually mean to you personally, and how do you think it's going to impact Penderyn in the long run?
Personally, I'm on the edge of the project. I'm remotely based to the business here in Wales, so when I come down as I do every couple of weeks to see the team, there is more progress being made here, and since I was here last in November, it's a revolution in terms of the site. Yes, it's still a building site today, but we'll be there, and it's difficult to think in 3 months' time we'll be open with, with thousands of people coming through the doors here. But it's a real sense of pride in terms of the business producing this sort of facility. Our ambition is well stated, and I think it will be a tremendous flagship for the business to be able to say, this is what we do, this is how we do it, and this is why we're unique. And I think when I talk to our customers about coming to see us, hosting their events here, bringing their teams down to maybe select their own particular whiskey for their own stores, that's the element of what facilities like that can give us: flexibility, agility, but a beautiful local scale.
One last question, Simon, and I've asked it of you before. What is the one thing you'd like to say to the travel retail industry?
Firstly, thank you for giving us the space so far, but also challenge yourselves a little bit more about how you can create a more interesting category, a more dynamic category that offers space to everyone to bring business growth, big and small brands.
Simon Roffe, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Peter.